What if the only proof you were still alive was a single, terrifying photograph? A Polaroid found in a convenience store parking lot, showing you bound and gagged in the back of a dark van. For the family of Tara Calico, this was not a hypothetical question. It was the beginning of a living nightmare, a chilling clue in one of America's most haunting and unresolved disappearances. Our story begins on the bright, sunny morning of September 20th, 1988, in Belen, New Mexico. Tara Calico, a vibrant and ambitious 19-year-old college student, was a picture of youthful energy. She was a sophomore at the University of New Mexico's Valencia campus, known for her sharp mind and her organized, determined personality. She had her whole life ahead of her, a future filled with promise that was about to be stolen in the blink of an eye. That morning, Tara decided to go on her daily 36-mile bicycle ride along the dusty stretch of Highway 47. She borrowed her mother's pink Huffy bicycle because her own had a flat tire. She put on her headphones, popped a cassette from the band Boston into her yellow Sony Walkman, and set off around 9:30 a.m. She had a tennis date with her boyfriend at 12:30 p.m., a perfectly ordinary appointment on a perfectly ordinary day. Before she left, she shared a lighthearted, now chilling exchange with her mother, Patty Dole. Tara joked that her mother should come and look for her if she wasn't home by noon, as she had plans she couldn't be late for. It was a casual remark, the kind of thing a daughter says to her mother every day. Neither of them could have known it would be the last conversation they would ever have, a final, prophetic instruction. Noon came and went, and there was no sign of Tara. Patty, a mother's intuition turning into a cold dread, did exactly as her daughter had asked. She drove up and down the familiar route along Highway 47, her eyes scanning the empty landscape for any sign of her daughter or the pink Huffy bicycle. But the road was empty. Tara Calico had vanished as if into thin air, leaving only the hot New Mexico sun and a deafening silence. The police were called, and a search began immediately. The investigation turned up its first clues, not far from the family's home. Along the side of the road, investigators found pieces of Tara's broken Sony Walkman and the Boston cassette tape. This was a grim discovery. It suggested that her disappearance was not a simple case of a runaway. It pointed to a violent struggle, an abduction that had happened right on the shoulder of the highway. Witness accounts began to trickle in, painting a more sinister picture. Several people reported seeing Tara on her bike ride that morning. Crucially, some of them also reported seeing an older model light-colored pickup truck, possibly a Ford, following her closely. One witness even said the truck was driving so aggressively close to her that they were worried for her safety. A predator had been shadowing her on that lonely stretch of road. Despite the witness statements and the discovery of the Walkman, the investigation quickly hit a wall. The truck was never identified, and no other physical evidence was found. The days turned into weeks, the weeks into months. For Patty Dole and Tara's stepfather, John, life became a relentless and agonizing search. They papered the country with flyers, appeared on national television, and followed every lead, no matter how slim, refusing to let their daughter's memory fade. The case grew cold, a painful wound for the family and the small community of Belen. For 9 agonizing months, there was nothing but silence, a complete and terrifying void where Tara used to be. The family was trapped in a state of suspended grief, clinging to the hope that she was alive somewhere, while fearing the worst. Then, in the summer of 1989, the mystery took a dark and surreal turn, nearly 1,500 miles away. On June 15, 1989, in the parking lot of a junior food store in Port St. Joe, Florida, a woman discovered a single, unprotected Polaroid photograph lying on the asphalt where a white, windowless Toyota cargo van had just been parked. The image on the film was so disturbing, so deeply unsettling, that she immediately turned it over to the police. It was a snapshot from hell. The photograph depicted a young woman and a small boy, lying on what appeared to be pillows and sheets in the dark, cramped interior of a van or a camper. Both were bound, their hands tied behind their backs. Their mouths were sealed shut with wide strips of black duct tape. They stared into the camera with expressions of sheer terror and resignation. It was a horrifying, intimate portrait of captivity. The local police, having no open missing persons cases that matched the photo, broadcast the image to the national media. It eventually aired on the television program A Current Affair, where it was seen by friends of the Dole family. They called Patty and John immediately, their voices shaking. They were certain that the young woman in the photograph, with her haunted eyes and familiar features, was Tara Calico. Patty Dole's world was turned upside down. She studied the photograph with a mother's eye, her heart aching. The resemblance was undeniable. But there was more. On the young woman's leg, there was a pale discoloration, a scar, in the exact same spot where Tara had a scar from a childhood car accident. The chilling evidence was mounting. This was her daughter. Another haunting clue was found within the frame of the photograph itself. Lying on the pillow next to the woman was a copy of the V.C. Andrew's novel My Sweet Audrina. This was a stunning detail. V.C. Andrews was one of Tara's absolute favorite authors, and her family confirmed she had read all of her books. The presence of that specific book seemed too personal to be a mere coincidence. The photograph was sent to the FBI for analysis. The experts at Polaroid were able to determine that the specific film used to take the picture was not available for purchase until May of 1989. This was a bombshell. It meant the photograph had been taken within a month of its discovery. If the woman was Tara, it meant she was still alive at least 9 months after she had been abducted from the side of that New Mexico highway. The analysis of the photo itself, however, yielded conflicting results that only deepened the family's agony. The FBI's analysis was officially inconclusive, stating they could not definitively say whether the woman was Tara. But Scotland Yard, renowned for its forensic expertise, analyzed the image and came to a different, stark conclusion. They told Tara's family they were certain the woman in the Polaroid was Tara Calico. The identity of the young boy in the photo became another frantic investigation. It was initially believed he could be Michael Henley, a 9-year-old boy who had also disappeared in New Mexico in April of 1988, not far from where Tara vanished. The two cases seemed chillingly similar, and for a time, it was thought the Polaroid held the key to solving both. Tragically, that lead also turned into a dead end. In 1990, Michael Henley's remains were discovered in the Zuni Mountains, just 7 miles from his family's campsite. He had died of exposure and was not a victim of abduction. The Polaroid was not of him. The identity of the terrified little boy, bound next to the woman who looked so much like Tara, remains a complete and total mystery to this day. The discovery of the Polaroid plunged the investigation into a new, darker phase. It was proof of a crime, but it provided no answers, only more horrifying questions. Who took the picture? Where was the van? Who was the boy? And most importantly, what had happened to Tara after that photograph was taken? The image was a single, frozen moment in an ongoing, unseen horror story. Over the years, 2 other, even more disturbing Polaroid photos have surfaced. The first was found near a construction site in Montecito, California. It showed a blurry image of a girl's head with her mouth covered by duct tape, her face obscured. The film used was available after June 1989. The second photo showed a woman loosely bound on an Amtrak train, her face obscured by large glasses. Patty Dole believed the first of these two additional photos was also of Tara, noting the familiar cowlick in her hair. However, she was less certain about the third. The authenticity and relevance of these later photos have never been confirmed, and they have only added more layers of confusion and pain to a case already saturated with both. The original Polaroid remains the only piece of strong, tangible evidence. For years, the case stagnated. The Dole family moved to Florida, exhausted by the constant reminders in New Mexico, but they never stopped searching, never stopped hoping for a breakthrough. They spent their life savings, followed every lead, and endured the cruel torment of believing their daughter was alive and suffering somewhere, held captive by the monsters who took her. In 2008, 20 years after Tara vanished, the case took another strange turn. René Rivera, the sheriff of Valencia County, made a stunning public statement. He announced that he knew who was responsible for Tara's disappearance. He claimed that two local young men, who were teenagers at the time, had been following Tara in their truck and had accidentally hit her. According to Rivera's theory, the young men panicked. Fearing they would be charged with a serious crime, they abducted the injured Tara, assaulted her, and later killed her to silence her. He claimed they had help, possibly from their parents, in disposing of her body and covering up the crime. It was a plausible, horrifyingly mundane explanation for her disappearance. Sheriff Rivera's claims were reportedly based on information he had received over the years from witnesses and informants in the community. He even stated that he knew the names of the individuals involved. However, he made it clear that without a body, without physical evidence of the crime, he could not make an arrest. His hands were tied. The suspects, now middle-aged men, continued to live freely. The years continued to pass, and the theory put forth by Sheriff Rivera was bolstered by unsettling rumors and alleged deathbed confessions. There were reports that a woman who had been the girlfriend of one of the suspects had a sealed confession that was to be opened upon her death. Another story involved a man confessing to a friend that he and another person had been involved in Tara's murder. None of these second-hand confessions have ever resulted in official charges. They remain part of the complex and frustrating mythology of the case, tantalizing whispers of the truth that always seem to dissolve before they can be proven. They offer a potential solution but no justice, a story with a beginning and a middle, but no definitive end. In 2013, a 6-person task force was assembled to reinvestigate the case, poring over the old files with fresh eyes. In 2019, the FBI announced a renewed push for information, offering a $20,000 reward for any details leading to the identification of the culprits or the location of Tara's remains. The case, though decades old, was far from forgotten. Patty Dole passed away in 2006, and her husband John in 2011. They went to their graves without ever knowing what happened to their daughter. They endured almost 2 decades of a parent's worst nightmare, a life sentence of uncertainty. Their relentless search and their unwavering love for Tara became a central, tragic part of the story. The case of Tara Calico is fundamentally different from many other missing persons cases because of that single, haunting photograph. It provides a terrifying window into the crime. It is not just a story about a girl who vanished. It is a story about a girl who was taken, held captive, and whose suffering was documented by her own abductors for reasons we can only guess at. The Polaroid is a taunt. It is a trophy. It was left in that parking lot to be found. It was a deliberate act by the perpetrators, a message to the world. But what was the message? Were they boasting of their crime? Were they trying to torment the family? Or was it, as some have speculated, a desperate plea from Tara herself, a clue she somehow managed to have left behind? The photograph has become one of the most iconic and disturbing images in the history of true crime. It has been analyzed, debated, and circulated for over 30 years. It is a symbol of the profound evil that can lurk just beneath the surface of an ordinary day, and a testament to the enduring power of a single image to captivate and horrify. Today, the case remains officially unsolved. The most likely scenario, supported by local law enforcement, is the tragic hit-and-run turned abduction. But without a body or a confession, it remains just a theory. The suspects, though named in local rumors for decades, have never been charged. They are ghosts in the narrative, just like Tara. We are left with the same questions that have haunted investigators and the public for over 3 decades. Was the woman in the Polaroid truly Tara Calico? If so, who was the boy and what became of him? Did Tara die that day in 1988, the victim of a panicked cover-up, or did she endure months or even years of captivity before her life was taken? The story of Tara Calico is a wound that has never closed for the community of Belen, or for the thousands of people across the world who have been captivated by her story. It is a cautionary tale about the dangers that can lie on a quiet country road, and a heartbreaking story of a family's love and their unending quest for answers. And at the heart of it all is that photograph. A single grainy image found by chance, showing a moment of pure terror, frozen in time. It is the beginning and the end of the story, a clue that solved nothing and yet explained everything. It is the reason why, after all these years, the world still looks at that picture and asks, with a shiver, what happened to Tara Calico?